already identified some problem that we have at the moment. Actually, we have already applied, but then we failed for the first try that we have, but we have time to prepare for next one. And one of the issue is the quality of the paper. We do hope that, of course, for the improvement, that we can have better quality of the paper, and then this is the purpose of we have this workshop. We do also hope the ideas later, beside also you, the participant, to explore on the what Pak Acharya and Pak James and Sol deliver on the how to improve the paper. We also hope it can give some ideas that for what you need, for example, so that for the future we are open to have not only the workshop only this time, but we can have the series of the workshop so that we can have the support from the candidate of author of the author. So the participants so far is those who submit the papers, and also the candidates that you may interested to send the paper to IGF. And we do hope that our colleagues from many universities can also share this information, that IGF is one of the, inshallah, the promising journal that we can work together to support this journal. Finally, I thank again Pak Acharya, who has been supporting us as editor-in-chief of the journal, and now we deliver his views, his knowledge and experience on for us how to have a good journal, good article that also the IGF will be have the highest standard and better quality also, that it can be listed, indexed in the scopus. That's what I would like to deliver for the opening remark. Thank you also for the supporting, organizing this program, Indin, Bu Nurul, and also Pak Susilo become the moderator and also MC. Thank you so much, and I need your support to this journal so that we can realize what we plan and to have the Scopus Index Journal for the IGF. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Professor Dr. Rizal Yaya, for the opening remarks. Then, ladies and gentlemen, first I would like to brief an introduction about our speaker. First, Dr. Askaria, MBA MSc. He is the senior lecturer at University of Darussalam Gontor, and then Indonesian and Institute Agama Islam Tazkiyah Bogor, and he is also editor-in-chief of International Journal of Islamic Economics and Finance. This is a journal from UMY and indexed in Sinta 2. And also he is a co-managing editor of Journal of Islamic Monetary Economics and Finance from Bank Indonesia, and it is indexed in Scopus. And he also served as editorial team member of several international scientific journals in the Scopus Index. And he is also reviewer for several international Scopus Index and national scientific journal. He is expert in Islamic economics, monetary, banking, Islamic microfinance, and Islamic social finance, especially zakat and wakaf, as well as lectures in several universities. In addition, he is trainer in the analytic network process and data development analysis research methods. He holds PhD in Islamic economics and finance from IF Trisakti University in Indonesia, and he also received PhD candidate in international development, MBA in finance, and MSc in management information system from University of Pittsburgh, USA. And the second speaker, Mr. James Hensel, Bachelor of Economics and Master of Evaluations. He is working as volunteer in Indonesia under the Australian Volunteer Program. Now, the IFPP is a part of the Australian government's international aid program to Asia and the Pacific. And his role entails providing assistance, editorial, and mentoring support to researchers aiming to have their work published in international journals, especially in this Faculty Economics and Business, Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta. And in addition, his role involves assisting students with project and studies relating to the rural development in the nearby village of Yogyakarta. He holds the Bachelor of Economics from the Lathrop University, Australia, and Master of Evaluation from University of Melbourne, Australia. Now, before the presentation begins, let me tell you how this workshop will run. Firstly, Dr. Askaria will present the material for about 45 minutes until 1 hour. And then after that, there will be a question and answers. And after that, we will have break for 5 until 10 minutes. Then the second session will be continue with another 45 minutes presentation from Mr. James. Is that okay, Dr. Askaria and Mr. James, for the schedule for the presentation?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so following that, we will have a question and answer session for approximately 15 minutes, and final session will be end up by conclusion. So to sum up the time, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, now allow me to welcome Dr. Askaria to present the material for about 45 minutes. Dr. Askaria, time is yours.
Thank you, Pak Susilo. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma sholli wa sallim ala nabiyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. Amma ba'd. Thank you for UMY to have me for this workshop. Pak Rizal, Yahya, and all the team members, and all the participants. Today, we will discuss about writing a quality paper, because this is actually the problem of most Indonesian authors, so that we can improve the quality of our publication. First, before we write any paper, any research, we have to ask this question first. Why you want to research? Why you want to publish? Maybe because you need to have publication because you are a researcher, you are a lecturer. You have to publish to international journal. You have to have a high H index. What type of research that you want to publish, you want to research? Is it a basic or applied, frontier research, exploratory or explanatory, etc.? And then who is your target audience? The wider the audience would be better, because this is published in international journal. So you have to aim for international reader, so that this will connect to your scope and your topic. Next, which one is the proper journal? So you have to select the journal that suit your topic, the scope, the index, the impact factor, etc. And then decide to a certain journal that you think is the most proper journal for your topic. And then don't submit your paper to multiple journals. This is also sometimes happen for Indonesian author. And please, this is also very important. Many of the Indonesian author, they don't look at the guidance for the authors. They just submit what they write. So you have to follow the guidance of journal that you choose, the format, the standard referencing, etc. You have to follow, because every journal has its own format, its own regulation. And this is the general tips on writing skill. First, you must read what you write. So you have to read, and read, because reading not only will improve your knowledge, but also will improve your reading skill also. So after you read so many articles, you can read, you know where to look for certain journal. You don't need too much time to see the core of the journal. With writing, with also improve writing, also improve with reading will improve your writing. So read and write, read and write, read and write. It would be better if you have a writing group. Now we discuss the major weaknesses of submitted journal to most journal, yeah, especially journal that I manage, the EGF and GIMF. The first thing is the contribution. What is the contribution? Contribution is your paper, your writing, contribute to the body of knowledge. Sometimes many, especially Indonesian author, they choose the topic so narrow, a case study of only certain organization, certain area. So that's too narrow for international audience. So that your topic, your scope would be very important. The wider the scope, the better. If you can access to international data, that would be better. If not, at least you can access to national data, but not only certain area or certain institution for the case study. So this is very important, because so many papers just rejected because of this contribution. The second thing is the framework of your article. You have to develop conceptual framework supported with theory and also the previous studies. So this is very important, because you cannot just design your framework baseless, or no basis on theory or no basis on previous studies. And the third one is methodology. You have to master the method that you select, and the method should be appropriate for your problem, for your research problem. So you have to understand the method that you selected. If you select, for example, time series method, you have to study, you have to learn that specific method. If you choose, for example, qualitative method, you have to choose which one, because qualitative method also, there are many qualitative methods, not just, you just said your method is qualitative, but you have to choose which one, because if you just write the qualitative method, just like you write an opinion, that would be unacceptable for academic journals. And the fourth is the writing style. This is very important because sometimes especially for the foreigner, for non-English person, English sometimes the problem for especially, for example, for Indonesian author, because English is our second language, not our mother language. So this is the key elements of good article for those four aspects. The contribution, substantial contribution to the body of knowledge related to issues that are of interest to international reader. So the topic is of interest to the international reader. The framework, sound framework or conceptual and or theoretical foundation of the issues under study or stated hypothesis. So it should be sound, it should be valid, supported with the theory and the empirical studies. The methodology, it should be the one that is appropriate for this specific topic, analytical or research method and robustness. Writing style, it should it should be well structured, organized, clarity, and free of obvious grammatical and spelling error and sloppy mistakes, because actually academic writing is simple. Now, this is some common mistakes that authors make. First, they fail to provide the proper context to frame the research question. This is almost always happen in usually a first-time author, novice writer. This is always happen, especially when I teach methodology for master degree or PhDs. Research question is very important. So you have to really frame the research question properly. Second, fail to delimit the boundaries condition for your research, because you cannot research everything. You have to have a boundary of your research. Third is fail to cite landmark studies. In every area of studies, there are landmark studies that you have to cite. How to find these landmark studies? Every time you read a good paper from international journal, Scopus Index, especially Q1 and Q2, you will see a certain paper will be always cited by the authors. So that certain topic that always cited, that's the landmark studies. You will know when you write many papers in the similar area. And then fail also to accurately present the theoretical and empirical contribution by other researchers. Fail to stay focused on the research question. Sometimes, especially students, they try to write many things, they think that the more they write, the better. No, yeah, it is not that. It's not that you don't need to write too much. The most important is stay focused. And actually, the concise paper is better, not the longest paper. And then fail to develop coherent argument for the proposed research. Too many details on minor issues, but not enough detail on major issues. Too much rambling all over the map. You write everything, especially in the introduction. Yeah. Too many citation lapses and incorrect reference. Too long or too short. Usually too long, but sometimes too short. And then fail to follow the standard references. Sloppy writing. Now we come to the structure of the quality paper. Of course, here's the cover, introduction, literature review, methodology, research and analysis, and conclusion, reference, and appendix maybe. But the most important parts are those in blue. The four part: introduction, literature review, methodology, result, and analysis. Those four are the most important part. And each section has its own purposes, and all sections must be neatly tied together. And this is the summary content of a quality paper. Introduction. You have to present what are your motivation, research gap, objective, and contribution. Usually, author fail to present the research gap, and research gap also connect to the contribution. Second, literature review. It contains states of knowledge in theory and in previous studies, so that you can pinpoint the gaps, research gap, and followed by the conceptual framework. And then the third one is methodology. This is chapter 3 usually. Research questions should be adequately answered. There are 4 subsections in methodology. You have to write your method, and then your proposed model, and then the data, and probably if your study needs certain different steps, you have to describe your steps. But if your selected method is common, maybe you don't need to present your steps. But if this is the method that, for example, rarely used, you have to present the steps, so that the reviewer know that you understand the method and capable to use those methods. And the fourth is result and analysis, because this is the most important parts, result and analysis. So the result should be in line with the method you use, and then you present the result as best practices of those certain methods. And then if you use the quantitative method, you should have a robustness test of your result. And then the analysis and discussion. And the last is the so what? What are the implications of your results? This is the 4 important chapter in a good quality paper: introduction, literature review, methodology, and result and analysis. Of course, conclusion would be followed. And this is some of the paper that you could learn from. Most of them from Q1 journal, so you can see these articles to learn how to write a good paper for Scopus. And overall, the most important is to find your research objective, to delimit your research objective. This is very important. First is what is the main theme and what are the issue problems that require research. For example, maybe you interested in Islamic banking, Islamic money market, or Islamic capital market, or maybe you interested in zakat, wakaf, etc. You have to find the issues, because there are so many issues in any area. There are so many issues, not just a general issue, specific issues. And then what is the current state of knowledge regarding the issues? This is also important, because sometimes when we want to write or research certain area, we don't have a good knowledge on that area. For example, if we want to study or write about zakat in Indonesia, we have to understand what is the current state of zakat in Indonesia. So we have to, we cannot study or provide recommendation that we don't know about. So we have to really grab the good understanding about the area that we want to study. So that's why many academicians, they always have their area of interest, because they will building their knowledge by researching those areas so many times. That's very important. And then why are these issues important? Why do they require further research? This is very important, because we cannot just replicate the same research question from the previous studies, and then we also study the similar topic. We have to have the extension or something that is still missing, something that need further research. So we have to contribute something, not just replicate. And then how will the research contribute to the body of the knowledge or to the literature? This is very important, because any journal, they want their publication read by the international audience, so that those journal could be improved. For example, if our journal now still in Sintatu, we want to move up to Scopus, and then if we already in Scopus, we would like to have Scopus in Q1 or Q2. So this is very important, the contribution of your research, not just I want to study this, but you have to know what are the contribution. And this is the checklist that you have to remember. Once the tentative topic identified, and then the step would be literature search, reading, gather information and understanding. What is your theme, broad theme or topic, general statement, and then practical relevance. This is part of introduction, and then the academic relevance. First, you present the real life practical reference relevance, and then the academic reference, theoretical, empirical discussion and debate of the previous studies, so that you will find the gaps, current state of knowledge in ancient literature, so that you will find the gaps, research gap, and then highlight your contribution to the literature. So this is some suggestion. Measurement, improvement of original measure that are the focus of this analysis, offering additional measure or theoretical link. Additional theoretical links, you add other theory in the model. Development of improved theoretical rationale of existing linkage. Empirical relationships, maybe there are some other new empirical findings, moderating factors. Or number 4, methodological improvement. You use different method, reducing potential problem, refine the measurement, improve the statistical validity. And 5, maybe there are some uniqueness in certain region or certain country that could be a point of interest. 6, never do this. No study or limited study on its own is not sufficient as a motivation. So you have to read as many as articles on your topics, not just based on 1 or 2 or 3 reference. You have to find as many as possible the reference, and you have to access from international journal scopus index. If you don't have the access, you have to try to find the access, because this is also some important thing. Some Indonesian authors, some Indonesian student, maybe they don't have access to scopus index journals. That's also very important. Next, we try to discuss each part of the paper. First is the cover, of course. In the cover, we have the title, we have the abstract and keywords. The title should be concise, descriptive, usually no more than 12 words, but it represents the paper content. It should be informative, so that would invite the reader's interest. Abstract, usually a brief summary about 100 to 250 words of research question, rationale, method, and the main finding, and could be the implication of the study. Explain the message of the paper clearly here, only in sometimes one paragraph, sometimes structured, sometimes unstructured. And then the keyword, usually GAL, or now in Islamic Economic and Finance, we have KAUJIA. This is from King Abdul Aziz University, GAL, JEA. We have covered this. The title, we already covered this. This is this is the first thing that all reader see, the title. So your title has to attract the reader attention. And then keep it informative, concise, descriptive, catchy. Because reviewer also will check whether the title is specific, whether it reflect the content of the manuscript. Editor also had titles that make no sense or fail to represent the subject matter adequately. Effective title not only piques the reader interest, but also predisposes him or her favorably towards the proposal. This is very important. Avoid technical jargon and abbreviation. You wish to have a readership as large as possible.
Saat ini saya menghubungi dia berulang kali, tidak menjawab panggilan. Saya gagas ke mobilnya dan meminta maaf padanya saja.
Please mute. Okay, there are many title in different publication. This is some of the example from Elsevier, from Springer, and from Emerald. They are concise and reflect what will be the body of the paper. This abstract should stand alone. Consider it the advertisement of your article, because after reader attract to the topic, then he or she will read the abstract, of course. So your abstract should be very attractive also. It's like an advertisement to your article. Most read part of the paper is the abstract, after the title, of course. Should tell the prospective reader what you did and highlight the key findings. That's very important. Avoid using uncommon abbreviation. Explain the message of the paper clearly. You must be accurate and specific. Clear abstract will strongly influence whether or not your work is further considered, especially by the managing editor of the journal. Follow the limitation. Sometimes a certain journal only allow very specific 100, 150, but you write 300 or more, and that would be not proper. And no citation on the abstract, of course. This is the example of the abstract from Elsevier. Very concise, just unstructured, one paragraph only, but it concise, contains the objective, the method, or if the data is very important, you present the data, because, for example, this is your study use international data, 12 country, 2,000 observation. That's important. So you put that in the beginning. Of course, the findings and the implication if needed. This is also unstructured abstract from Springer. Also only one paragraph. Also include the topic, the objective, the method, findings and implication, and the keywords. This also from Springer. And this is the structured abstract. If you submit your paper to Emerald, this is the structured abstract. Structured abstract actually helpful not only for the reader, but also for the author, because he or she could put the sentence in purpose, and then design, method, approach, findings, limitation, implication. So it's very simple, and what you need to present in the abstract already guided by the structure. This is also structured abstract. Keywords. This is also very important because people will search your paper using these keywords. So you have to find the most important keyword for your paper. Some usually not more than 4. So now we discuss the introduction part. Introduction, this is also very important. You first establish identify your research topic, and then identify issue within that certain topics that demand attention, and then how you are going to address that issue. So this is the introduction. And some part of the introduction that need to be included, because here the purpose of your introduction is first to showcase the article and serve as part of the shop window, because after a potential reader read the abstract, if he or she interested, or he or she will read the introduction. Yeah, introduction gives readers an enticing glimpse of what is to come, and introduction also will sell the study effectively. So this is parts of the introduction that you have to cover. First, of course, the general introduction to the topic to be investigated, and then the background or practical relevance. This is very important. What happened in the real world, this problem. And then after you present the real world problem, you present the academic relevance. How previous study has researched this problem, because almost any problems already been written by many writings. So academic relevance is very important. This is the scholarly debates, theory and empirics, so that you will find are these problems still worth studying, or it's already concluded. So you need to find the academic relevance. If there are still gaps, then you can continue. So that then you have to emphasize on research gap or controversies or inconsistencies. So you find the research gap from the academic relevance. So that would be your research objective. And then state your contribution. And lastly, organization of the paper. So this is very important. Many authors fail to present the academic relevance and the research gap. This is the most failure in almost any new author. They fail to present the academic relevance and the research gap. So that actually when you fail to present your research gap, it means that your topic is not really valid. So that's very important. So you have to study, you have to learn how to structure the research gap from academic relevance. this is some examples, introduction, where the author present the introduction and then the practical relevance. And then after the introduction and practical relevance, then academic relevance to, and then research gap and the objective. So you can study this. Now, the most important thing is in the introduction is the research gap. So you have to pay attention on how to construct the research gap. Research gap would be found through citation analysis, content analysis report, meta-analysis, systematic review, and also from future research and limitation. And these are the 7 types of research gap. It could be evidence gap, it could be knowledge gap, it could be practical knowledge gap, it could be methodological gap, it could empirical gap, it could be theoretical gap, or population gap, or data gap. Maybe you have a new data. So you have to learn all of this. This is the definition of each of the research gap. You can study this. And then now we move to the literature review, that you have to understand that you have to master first the theory in this literature review. What are the trends and themes in the literature review? Consensus, controversy. This is from the also from the empirical research. Ongoing debate. Where does my research weigh in? Where are the areas on which there is ample research? What are the areas that need further research? Where does my research fit into the larger literature on the topic? Which studies offer support for my thesis? Which studies contradict my thesis? So, in short, chapter 2 will present your understanding on the theory and the literature that has been done for this certain topic, so that you really grab everything that you need to know about theory and empirical research on this topic, so that at the end you will find the gap that need to be researched. Actually, research gap would be found in the chapter 2, not on chapter 1. So it would be better if you do the chapter 2 first, at least the literature review, to find the research gap, and then you can write the introduction, because research gap actually would be found in the chapter 2. This is very important, because sometimes excuse me, you try to write chronologically from chapter 1, but in chapter 1 actually you have to read so many papers, so many theories. So actually that part of the chapter 2. So you can switch. You do the chapter 2 first, and then go back to chapter 1. So this is the element of literature review. Theoretical discussion, empirical literature structure in ways that suit the objective of the paper, highlight the gaps, re-emphasize contribution of the paper, development of hypothesis can also be embedded in the literature review. Some studies like those using structural equation modeling, you will develop hypothesis in this chapter, or you study quantitative research, sometimes you also develop hypothesis here. Theoretical foundation. This is the first part of literature review. The theoretical foundation is a formal peer-reviewed theoretical model, can be used to explain the issue that is driving your research. Some authors, when you write about the theoretical foundation, they cite empirical paper. That's not correct. You have to cite the theoretical paper in your theoretical foundation. This is very important because so many articles submitted to our journal, some of them put or cite empirical paper for theoretical foundation. So that is not correct. You have to stick to the theoretical paper for your theoretical foundation. So, and then the second part, the previous studies, literature review. So this is also so many mistakes on literature review. Many authors just write everything, this study, those study, but just that, just list everything right on a topic, just describe a series of paper, or sometimes they put the summary of the literature review on a table. That's not a literature review. Literature review should be organized, should we evaluate, and then identify the trend. And lastly, you should synthesize all of the literature you read to find certain gaps that you want to study. So that's really a good literature review. There should be a synthesis. This is very important. And when you write this literature review, you always write connected to the gaps that you want to highlight. Not just everything you write, everything you mention about certain studies. You only mention the one that connected to your topics. Okay. Next, the writing of literature review should be organized, of course, and then it must be continually linked to your discussion of the literature, back to your research question, link the study to one another, prioritize studies, more important with more details, evaluate gaps, and identify areas to be filled. So when you start literature review, you find the literatures, brief reading, relevant, and then detailed reading and notes. Maybe you make notes, maybe you make a table, the objective, the sample, the method, main result. That's how you start the literature review. For example, this example, you could make a summary like this, but this is not the literature itself. Sometimes author just put this in the literature review. This is your this is your source of writing a good literature review, so that you know that the connection between or among the topic, in the model, in the result, and in everything. And the third part is the methodology. Actually, this methodology is maybe the easiest one, yeah, because methods are not your innovation. Other people have written the same methods. So although this is we only rewrite anything that already done by previous by those who design or create the method, but you need to present differently, because you will you risk, your risk here is the risk of similarity, because you have to keep your similarity index very small, sometimes less than 10%, sometimes less than 20%. So you cannot just copy paste method from other paper or from the book of method itself. You have to write on your own. You have to rephrase, you have to paraphrase, so that it would be different. Read 5 to 8 papers that have used the same method, distinguish your writing, do not copy, paraphrase. That's very important. This is one of the easiest section to write, actually. A good proposal should contain sufficient details on this section for another qualified researcher to implement the study. So what important in this methodology is that if other people read your methodology, your chapter here, he or she would understand how to do it. So that's very important. And also this is very important for you, because the editor, managing editor, the reviewer, they also will look at this methodology to see that you understand how to do the research. So that is very important. So that a good proposal should contain sufficient details on this section for another qualified researcher to implement the study. And then it is really the heart of the research proposal, because this is very important. If your methodology is not valid, it would be rejected. Yeah, it is very important because it tells you the research committee how you plan to tackle your research problem. So this is some notable points. There are numerous modeling approaches which one can address your research objective. Good paper is not about demonstration of statistical exercise. This is very important. Method is important, but the more important thing is the result behind the. This is just the tools. You have to master the tools, but not just master the tool is not enough. So don't just show or demonstrate your mastering in this statistical exercise. This is just the tools. Take note of alternative assumption when constructing the model. Start with the basic or baseline empirical model and proceed from there if this is your quantitative model. So these are the 4 elements of methodology. First is the method itself. Tools to be used to do the research. This should be the most, you should select the most appropriate method for your topics. And then second is your proposed model. This is very important. Your proposed model. The proposed model, your model specification. This should be based on theoretical and empirical literature. You cannot just propose your thinking of the model, but you have to base your model from the theory and from the empirical literature. Replication, modification, or new model. Replication is not really accepted unless for scriptsy. Yeah, you have to modify at least, or a new model. And then data. Required data connect to the model and also the method, of course. So data should be follow the method, follow the model, and the most important thing is follow the scope of your research. Because if your data is only, for example, the data is only a regional data, or maybe only a case data, so that's the contribution will be very little. But if your data is national or international, that would be very good contribution, right? So this is very important. And then present the step of research if necessary. If your method is new, the method, because research in Islamic economy and finance vary from the exploratory to causality. So there are so many methods, qualitative, quantitative, different approach. There are such approach, plan approach, system approach. So many method you can choose, but you have to choose properly which one is most proper for your topic, for your research question. This is some standard method that can be used for study in Islamic economic and finance. Qualitative research could be descriptive, content analysis, and so on. Quantitative data, cross-sectional data, time series, univariate, multivariate, panel data. There are so many methods that you can select, but choose or select the most proper one. That's very important. So in quantitative research, data and method that you have to find, to select the proper method for your data. If your data cross-section, you have this selection of method. If you have time series for univariate, you can use this method. If multivariate, this is the most used multivariate time series data. You can use so many methods. And then the panel data, you have static panel data or dynamic panel data. And this is some best method in Islamic economic finance according to my experience. First is factor autoregression. Second is structural equation modeling. And then third is analytic network process. And the last is agent-based model, because those methods actually have the characteristic of interrelationship, interconnectivity among variables. So this is some recommended methods. Delphi, if this is a very early research, no theory, Delphi Likert, Delphi SEM, Delphi INP, modified conventional theory, or performance measurement. So when you do the quantitative model, you have the baseline model, and then you will have alternative model, estimate, and then you explain the robustness. So this is some examples of modified monetary policy transmission mechanism, because we have a conventional theory on this, and then we can modify it for the Islamic monetary policy transmission mechanism. And then so many studies using SEM, PLS SEM, using TAM, technology assessment model, and then modified it to have Islamic variables like religious knowledge, halal label, etc., etc. Content analysis, You have to follow certain. You have to follow the method, but your content are the Islamic economic and finance, SIST, and there are so many methods that you can select. Yeah, this is analytic method process, Delphi ANP. Now about the data. Required data has always been in line with the method that I already mentioned before. Description of variables, independent, dependent, exogenous, endogenous. This is very important. If you use econometric method, some method use independent and dependent. Some method use exogenous, endogenous. Some other method use latent, endogenous, latent, exogenous. You have to be correct in this part, because, for example, if you use structural action modeling and then you said my independent variable, it's not correct, because SAM use latent variable, latent endogen, and latent exogen. So you have to be correct. Quantitative, qualitative, secondary, primary, description of the data structure, size, source, sample. Sample is very important. Not only you have to follow the requirement of the model, of the method, your sample have to be also cover the scope of your research. For example, if you study using SAM, for example, PLSM for specific, for example, because PLSM could use small sample, but then your scope is Indonesia. So you cannot just use small sample because your scope is Indonesia. So your sample should be proper, covering at least all the main continents of Indonesia. You have sample from those major continents in Indonesia, not just certain part of Indonesia, not just sometimes only from your network. That's not correct. You have to cover the sample similar to your scope. If your scope is national, your sample should be also national. That's very important, because so many SAM studies just use the minimum sample and also from the closest from your location. So that's incorrect. So data should always connected to the variable and to the method. Average researcher can replicate your study. That's the objective of this method. So you have to really explain appropriately so that reader can replicate your study. So this is some methodology, factor autoregression, structural action modeling, analytic method process, content analysis, Delphi Likert, Delphi SAM, Delphi MP, and the result. This is most important part of the result. Do not just describe as they are in the tables. Explain why you are getting what you are getting. Why some are significant, some are not, some positive, some negative. How are results consistent with theory, with literature? Point out the literature, be clear and be specific. The element of the result analysis, description of the data, descriptive statistic, correlation could be in data section. Required test presented, explained with respect to the requirement. Result obtained from the method used, tabulated, presented, and so on. Interpretation of the result, identified features, pattern, link between result, robustness test, at least 3 robustness for quantitative study, analysis or discussion, what the result mean, link with previous result, link with theory, how results are new or different, and then the implication. So you have descriptive, statistic, correlation, baseline, robustness, and analysis. This is, I present here some template of some important or some favorite method. For example, VCM. This is how you present the first required test should be presented, and then the result, and then robustness, and then the analysis. This is what you need to present in your VCM result. Unit root, configuration, stability, like optimum for the test, and then your result. Granger, causality, IRF, FEVD, and then estimation. And then the robustness. You could use the different model, different sample, or different method. And then the analysis, meaning link to previous studies, link to the theory, new or different result. VCM, I present here so many, some important method: static panel data, dynamic panel data, covariance-based SAM, and this is the most used in Islamic Economic and Finance, PLSM. So you have to present required test from here: measurement, internal consistency, reliability, convergent reliability, discriminant validity, and then the outer model, quality question. You have to present all of this, and then you have the result of measurement and structural, and then the robustness if needed. There are 3 kinds of robustness, and the analysis of the result, meaning, and etc. So this NP, Deviliker, and so on, because time is up for me. This is the conclusion. It should be concise. What can be concluded from the study? Key findings, relate the conclusion with the research objective, elaborate the important details, important implication. Do not repeat some portion of the introduction in the conclusion. Do not rehash what has been said in the body of the paper. Provide recommendation for important stakeholders. Mention the limitation of the result, hints on future research. And some tips: select reference. Yeah, follow the certain standard. Use the scopus journal. Include reference to authors who are known. Cite the landmark studies. Cite your own article, but not too many. Do not cite your other do not cite dissertation, thesis. You have to cite the journal article. Cite relevant paper only. That's all my presentation. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Astaria, for the presentation. Next is maybe question and answer for two questions. Is there anyone?
Can I ask?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Thank you to Pak Astaria, who already explained very comprehensive on the writing for the scopus journal. Pascaria, just before you mentioned about the in the methodology you mentioned about the robustness test, I want to ask you, I mean, is the robustness test always required, or or it is required only in certain condition, maybe just in certain journal or topics or methodology or certain paper maybe, and if it is indeed required, yeah, how it is done? I mean, how the robustness test can be carried out, like or are there many ways to do the robustness test? That's all from me. Thank you, Pascaria. My name is and I'm from ITB University. Thank you.
Okay, about the robustness test. First, the robustness test is required for quantitative research. If you do a quantitative research, you have to have the robustness test. If for example, you use, for example, qualitative research, sometimes those methods do not provide the way how to do the robustness. Yeah, for example, if you do, for example, content analysis, there is no way how to do the robustness, but there are validation. At least there are some validation. Also, some method, for example, SAM, if you use a quantitative, there are always this is quantitative, VCM quantitative. There's always robustness test. Static quantitative, there's always a robustness test. But in SAM, either CB SAM or PR SAM, if you look at the general paper on SAM on Scopus journal, you will find some use the robustness, some don't use the robustness. So that's for SAM, there are robustness is seem like recommended, not required. But if you want to submit your paper to Q1 journal, it is a must. But if you submit your paper to, for example, Q4 journal or Q3, maybe if you don't put your robustness test, maybe it's okay. Sometimes one time I submit my paper using ANP to the Q1 journal. Actually, ANP do not have a robustness test, but they ask. I have to put the robustness, and then I try to search to find. Oh, I can use the sensitivity analysis on ANP to do the robustness test. So, if you want to submit your paper to Q1 at Q1 journal, you have to have robustness test, either quantitative or qualitative. But actually, most qualitative method they don't provide how to do the robustness. That's very important. But if you do the if you use the quantitative method or some qualitative that provide the robustness, you can use the robustness. ANP, SAM, you have to, it is better for you to present the robustness so that your chance to be accepted would be better. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Askarya.
Pak Susilo.
Yeah. Sorry. Dr. Askarya, we have a question from Reninta Nurrahmi. She asked the question about the quantity. If we apply static model can we use dynamic model for the robustness test?
Okay, this is about the panel data, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think this is the question on panel data.
Yes, sir.
When you use the panel data, if you use the panel data, most people study panel data using a static model.
Yes.
Right? They will choose the best model, either there are three different panel data. You have to test, and then you choose the best model, and then after that, actually you don't need to do the dynamic panel data for your robustness. You can use the alternative model or alternative sample, but actually, if your data is proper to run the dynamic, you can use dynamic panel data as your robustness test. That would be better because you use two different panel data, static and dynamic. If your study use both, one for the robustness, it would be better.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Prof. So we cannot compare static and dynamic models in one study, yeah?
Yes, you can do that also.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Askarya. So one more questions. Can you from the Sulistiawati? She said that because the discussion sections is the core of the entire content of the paper, right?
Yeah.
And she said that it is hard enough to develop the sections as best as possible to achieve a good article. And all of us maybe face this problem. And she asked about the tips, specific tips for make good discussion sections for the scopus journal.
Okay. Yes, I understand. This analysis or discussion is actually first. This is the most read part actually, because people want to know the analysis, the discussion. But for the author, especially the novice author, it is difficult to write the discussion. So what is the discussion? Discussion is to discuss first. You have your results, and then you already read so many papers on the similar topics, their results. So you will analyze why your results is different or similar to certain previous studies. You discuss those. You discuss, for example, your study. For example, not just from previous result. Also discuss from the theoretical point of view. Is your result confirm the theory or disconfirm the theory? is your result similar or different from certain previous studies? Why? That's the most important. The most important thing. Why? If different, why different? If similar, why similar? So sometimes you need to discuss with some expert your result to find the real meaning, the meaning behind the numbers. That is very important. So you need more information, more knowledge to put your discussion. Not just you just compare your result with previous studies. You compare your result with the theory. Sometimes we still do not understand why. So that's why sometimes, for example, you use certain method, you can discuss with the expert, you can discuss with the practitioner. Yeah. For example, if your topic is about, for example, zakat, you already have your result and you know the other paper result, and then you don't know how to connect them. You could discuss this with the practitioner of zakat. They will understand why your result is that way and the other is that way. So you need to discuss with other people, with other experts. Other practitioners usually know better. The better yet is if you discuss with the academician or expert who are also practitioners. That would be better insight you receive from those experts. So it's not just you analyze using papers, but you need to discuss with other experts. Thank you. Back to Pak Susilo.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Askaria, for the explanation. And then now we continue to the next speaker, or you want to
Can
have a
I
break?
ask the questions?
Oh yeah, question again.
Yes, sorry. Can I speak now? I have I messaged you.
Okay. One question. Okay.
Okay.
The last question.
Okay. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum, Prof. Askara. May Allah reward you for your great presentation. Alhamdulillah, I benefit a lot. And now currently I improve one of my papers under our journal. And Alhamdulillah, may I get your suggestions to submit more paper in our journal for contribution part? For example, on Islamic banking studies, our journal, is there any, more suggestion we should focus on to submit paper in our journal under Islamic IFSP standard studies? For example, now confuse me is if standard studied on international base, different countries, different regions, their standards are different.
Yes.
So, so could I get your suggestions? Under standard studies for Islamic banking, is better focus on international scale or national or just regional? Regional, for example, GCC, MENA, and for country and Malaysia, Indonesia are very, good examples to invest more about standards, because we are also a BASER community member. But so could I get your suggestions as want to submit more people in our journal? So what should we really focus on for contributions? Thank you, Prof.
Okay. If you study on Islamic banking,
yes.
First, there are many data available for Islamic banking, so you can do the econometrics, the quantitative studies, right?
Yes.
The second, the most important thing, can you access to international data? If you could access to international data, that should be better. For example, from bank scope, you can access international data, for example, Islamic Bank from Middle East, from Indonesia, from Malaysia, from Bahrain, from any country in the world. So that would be better. If you do not have access to international data, at least try to find the data from first your country, and then the similar country to your country. For example, if you are in Malaysia, maybe you can find the data from Indonesia, Pakistan, Brunei. You compare those regions, for example. That would be better. Okay. If not, if you only can access data from your country, just using your country, that's the least you can do for one country only. But it would be better multiple country or internationally. So that would be the best.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Thank you very much. Very good suggestion. And now, for Fitch Connect database, Alhamdulillah, they provide Islamic banking data, both international and national problem. But now, based on my reading, only confuse me is for standards practice, different countries practice different standards. So this confuses me. If we focus on international studies, so is there any real contributions for standard study?
Actually,
how capital adequacy ratio?
Actually, we have also international standard, AOFI. We have international standard, right? So at least those Islamic banks in different countries, they follow at least the minimum standard. But they also have differences, right?
Yes.
You don't need to focus on the differences. You can focus on the similarities.
Okay. So this is no problem for
no problem.
Okay.
Or if you want to study differently, if you want to study the differences between standard in one and the other country, you can do that, but not in quantitative maybe. But you can do that also. The differences among countries when they practice Islamic banking. Okay. So usually focus on international studies for Islamic banking is better. Yes. Our journal suggests more focus on Islamic skills, Islamic simples, international simples for Islamic banking study. First, if you want to reach international audience, the international data would be better. Yes. And then second, regional. The third is just national, just one country. Okay. Thank you very much. May Allah reward you. Amin. Thank you. Back to Pak Susilo. You are still mute, Pak Susilo.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Aisyah, and then Dr. Askaria for the explanations. Due to the time limitations, maybe we can continue to the second speaker, Mr. James. Are you ready to present? Hello, Mr. James.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. I think.
Yes, I am. Yes.
There are so many participants are waiting now, so we can continue to the second presentation. Okay, Mr. James, time is yours.
Yep. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you, James. Very okay.
Good. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Yes, my name is James Henshaw. I'm with the Australian Volunteers Program. That's part of the Australian government's international aid program to Asia and the Pacific, as was introduced earlier. I will not take up too much of your time. That was a very comprehensive, quite a comprehensive presentation given by Askaria, Dr. Askaria. So thank you for that, Askaria. Much of that is very useful. I strongly recommend that you get a copy of his presentation and mine, but I strongly recommend you get a copy of his presentation. That is a very good roadmap for publications. for publishing and for journal writing. If you just bear with me, I'm just trying to close one window here, but I'm not having much success. But anyhow, we'll continue on. Look, I won't take up too much of your time. What I would like to do here in my presentation is give, it's very similar to Dr. Ascaria's, Professor Ascaria's presentation, but I'll give some examples or practical examples of what I have seen in my readings of papers in the in the journal. This is an introduction of my presentation. I'd like to sort of talk some theory in a way, some light-hearted theory as to why we write, the value of writing in an academic sense and in a personal literary sense. My observations of what I've read so far in manuscripts I've read here in UMY in Indonesia, in Yogyakarta, Universitas Muhammadiyah, Yogyakarta, provide some sort of overview of what I've seen in my observations and give some ideas as to how it could be changed or improved, before and after type approach. Some practical matters on writing for journals, and some sort of template, and then I'll a template which has already been provided, but I'll repeat that, and some questions. We'll conclude with some questions. So who am I? I'm Australian. I'm from the Volunteers Program. I like Lotek, Gado-Gado, Sambal, and Yogyakarta and Indonesia. We all do. It's a great, wonderful city, Yogyakarta. Wonderful city.
Nice, James.
I'd like, yes?
Yeah, nice.
I'd also like to thank my assistant here, Sari. She's been very grateful in her time with assisting me with technical matters on how to share screens. Must learn how to do that. So I'm from Melbourne, Australia, and I'm now at the red dot there in Yogyakarta, a wonderful city. Okay, so why do we write? Why do we write? I'd just like to open up just for a few minutes, not long, but just for a few minutes, a chance for you to speak, say something. I'd like some people to maybe write in the chat box, or say, why do we write as academics, as academics, and personally, what's the purpose of writing? Anyone like to speak a few suggestions in 1 or 2 minutes? I'm sure you all know, I can't see my chat box for some reason, but I'm sure you all know why you write as academics. And I'll go through a list here to help guide conversation and discussion. My thoughts, you're welcome to add to these in the chat box or conversation, why we write. Why we write. It's to communicate. It's to communicate knowledge and understanding, feelings, emotions, our thoughts. In an academic sense, it's of course to provide knowledge and understanding. Writing is also a very good tool for processing ideas and thinking through ideas. This is very much true at the drafting stage of our writing. It helps provide clarity in our mind as to what we are writing about based on the research that we've done, qualitative or quantitative. It's a very useful process for unwrapping, unfolding what's in our mind and what's in our Excel spreadsheets and what's in our readings and summaries. It's to situate, and by that I mean, due to a literature review, we can situate, and we are of course providing knowledge, so we're filling a gap. We're not really so much repeating what's already done. We're situating the current debate in a topic around what we already know. Most notably here, briefly, for example, is monetary policy. In Australia and worldwide, interest rates are rising because of a variety of reasons. And monetary policy, the role of monetary policy has now come to light again. And it's getting a new place in the debate around economic policy. So it's finding a new situation, a new location in macroeconomic policy debate and discussion. It's to convey knowledge, to give knowledge to others about what is happening in the topic area. To convey reality, you will all know this as researchers in terms of epistemology and ontology. Epistemology is we're creating knowledge, we're unfolding what we're trying to unfold or unwrap what is out there, what is happening in a topic area. And to convey reality, by that I mean we're conveying what is real, or as much as we can get, as closely as we can get to what is real. And to give meaning, to give understanding and meaning to what it all is, and its implications in terms of policy and the future, and reaching optimal states of being, which, as in economics, we're all very much interested in points of optima, minimum and maximum, and provide understanding of a topic area. Logic, to structure. Now, it's important that we structure papers and the like. We've Prof. Ascario has covered this. We need to have structure in our writing, any sort of writing, to provide logic, to show relationships of parts to each other, leading to purpose and function. A structure of anything, a structure of how a house is built or a road makes its way through a landscape, to provide understanding of how certain parts fit together and relate to each other. This is a little detail, but I'm sorry for that, but it is useful. It is useful. Provide a structure of writing, and you'd all be very familiar with this as to what an introduction is, what the purpose of a literature review, the methods and tools and processes that we use, the results and what the data show us. Analysis is factors impacting the data, discussion of research questions and context, implications of what we've found in our new knowledge, summary overview. Is an important there the future, where we're going in this down the pathway of life, or in the policy debate. It's important to highlight the limitations of a study. Nothing's perfect in this world, and no study is ever perfect because it has limitations in terms of budget, time, resources, staffing, personnel, data quality, representative. And finally, I believe it's also important to provide some acknowledgement of those who assisted or took part in study in helping to create knowledge. I won't go into that any more detail. That's useful content requirement outline provided by Punch, a book that I used during my master's degree on social research methods. This presentation, of course, will be available to you at the conclusion. Okay, so in terms of that structure point I was talking about earlier, I'd just like to highlight that a little more closely. It's very important that we have cohesion in what we write. By that I mean that it all neatly fits together, that it doesn't ramble, that it doesn't go off track, that the reader doesn't become distracted. These are points that Prof. Ascario covered earlier. But it's important that we keep things on track and cohesive. And I use what I was taught in my master's degree, the MEAL principle, M-E-A-L, Makan Meal. And I will outline that here, the MEAL principle. It is, my screen has not working. The MEAL principle, here we are. MEAL principle, main idea of what we're talking about in a paragraph. And by this, I mean the MEAL principle applies to a paragraph, each paragraph that we write. the main idea, the evidence that supports the main idea, or the evidence from which the main idea comes, some analysis that help the reader understand the topic, the particular subtopic within a topic, and the link. And by that, I mean a link between paragraphs and a link within paragraphs to help that provide that cohesion. And there's a publication by Morley, which I can provide at the end of this session. He provides a very, very useful guide on how to bring about that cohesion in linkages within paragraphs and within and between paragraphs. So I have an example here, and if anyone would like to read it, they're welcome to, but it's an example of the meal principle. It's a little rather simplistic, but I feel it helps provide an example of how that unitary nature or cohesive nature of our writing. And would anyone like to read this? Would anyone like to read this? Or shall I read it? I'll read it, shall I? I'll read it. Okay, the meal principle, an example. Okay, the main idea. My cat is very selfish. That's the main idea. The evidence, and you all are familiar with this, but it's important to remind everyone of this for the purposes of cohesion. The main idea is that my cat is very selfish. The evidence, this is shown by the way he only thinks of himself. I fill his bowls with food and water every morning and afternoon, pat him, comfort him, and talk with him. I also give him warm milk, but he just purrs and sleeps all day, unresponsive of my caring efforts. Okay, so that's the evidence. And analysis, there's some analysis that supports this, some research that was done on this. This is very, very fictitious, I might add, but for the purposes of illustration, I'll continue. There is some analysis that was done on this. All of his nonchalant behavior is attributable to what Katakowski in 1956 correctly identified as the selfishness of cats. This is due to the innate breeding and the primate cultural heritage of 97.45% of the cat population and 100% of their obvious disdain to their caring humans. However, Katakowski conducted his research. Now, this is a sort of a critical comment on the work of Katakowski. However, Katakowski conducted his research in New York City, famous for its cool black-clad cats. And here comes the link. Now, there are the links within this paragraph. The link is this is shown in the red section. This is shown with links with the preceding sentence. In the blue aqua color, the link is shown where I write all of his nonchalant behavior, which goes back to his nonchalant behavior. It provides a link, an example, and some analysis. And then the link here in the green section. In order to bring about change in my cat's behaviors, there are some habits I will attempt to implement. So this is an example of a very unitary, cohesive type of paragraph that we're all expected to write. Otherwise, it becomes rambling and disjointed and difficult and distracting for the reader to follow. I've been reading some quite a few articles from the IGIEF journal since I arrived here, commenced working here 3 months ago. These are some of my observations so far from the journal here from UMA, is that many of the topics are relevant and topical, they're current. They help to provide, they help to add knowledge to the field, especially Islamic banking and Islamic economics, as the title indicates. The articles are very organized. They follow the template that's been given on the website, and there is a clear structure. So that's what my observation so far. However, in the articles I've read, almost all of the articles I've read, pretty much all of the articles I've read, the English grammar and English expression are not good. It's difficult to follow, and it's distracting to the reader what is actually being said. Now, I must say, I hasten to say that is because English is not the second language of the writer, and that must be taken into account. If I were to write an article in Bahasa Indonesia, I can speak Bahasa Indonesia only a little, but if I were to write an article in Bahasa Indonesia, it would be very bad. It would be very disjointed. It would be very difficult to follow. I don't have a very strong command of the language, of Indonesian language, so I can fully understand and have empathy with the difficulties of English grammar and English expression. English grammar and expression are particularly difficult. It's a very difficult language to learn, and much of the grammar I still don't understand, as do my compatriots in Australia or the English-speaking world. Many of the articles are descriptive. They sort of put a lot of, in the literature review, they seem to dump a lot of information about what the author has read on the literature, and it doesn't really seem to go back to the research question or the research topic. So the reader is left trying to wade their way through the literature and what is being written, because it's descriptive, and it doesn't really go back to the original purpose of the research or the research question. Much of the English language, this goes back to the first point, much of the conversation is informal expression. I'll demonstrate this later. That informal expression, I mean, it's not strictly proper English expression that you would find in a journal such as the IGEF or any academic journal, or any form of English writing. It's also difficult to read. It's somewhat disjointed and rambles a little. Soundness of argument, I think sometimes it raises questions as to the validity of what's being said. Not so much the academic or the research validity, but the validity of the point being made. I feel this can be overcome by some close editorial guidance and management, and peer review by your peers, and even showing friends a draft of your article, who allow your friends who may not have a knowledge of your topic area but can read through it and still ask for clarity and clarification of what's being said. Connectives, this goes back to the Neal principle. Connectives of words and phrases and that can be used to connect sentences, one sentence to another or one sentence to the next, and connectives that connect one paragraph to the next paragraph, so it's cohesive. It's like a table that you're now sitting at. Or the desk that you're now sitting at. It's a very good, fine piece of craftsmanship, workmanship. The legs and the top fit the top of the table. The top of the table is smooth. There's no risk of damage to your skin from splinters or roughness. It's well connected to all parts are well connected and functions. It's fine, like fine craftsmanship, wood craftsmanship. So what does this mean to you as writers? Okay, so I've gone through what I've seen so far in my reading of the journal and manuscripts that I've read. What does this mean to you in your future as academics, or in your study lines of study, and in your professional world as academics, or in your professional world in government and the private sector in terms of writing? Well, I can show you some examples. I have an example here of a before and after. This is an article I took from the IGIEF Journal, Volume 5, Number 1, January last year. I chose this article for no other reason really that it really demonstrates what I've experienced in my readings of the journal and manuscripts. And secondly, I might add, I chose this article because I also have an interest in macroeconomic policy and policy mix of monetary policy, fiscal policy, and wages policy and international trade policy. So it's for those two reasons I chose this, only for those two reasons, really. Okay, so let's take an example. Okay, let's take an example. My observations before. This is an example of a literature review in this article. This is the literature review that comes from this article. The role of institutions and macroeconomic policy mix on economic growth in Muslim country. Okay, so this example, this is the literature review, part of the literature review that came from that, that comes from this study. I won't read all of this, but I can refer you to the journal article. I won't read all of this. This is what this is before, and I just did some markups. Not comprehensive, but this is some. Then after I did some markups, and these are the markups on this background theory to the literature review. There we are. Okay, so this is my markups on this literature review, on this first page of literature review. I'll just take the first paragraph. Fiscal and monetary policy is a combination of the central economic policies of each country to achieve high economic growth. Now that's just an opening sentence, that paragraph. Precision of meaning, it's more to achieve high economic growth. It's more around stabilization of the economy, not so much solely high economic growth. We want stabilization to keep inflation down and unemployment up to optimal levels. So that sentence really goes to issues around precision of meaning, technical issues of meaning. And that sentence could be reworded to make it easier and softer to read. The second paragraph there, the first sentence, regarding the impact of government debt, a budget deficit, on the economy, there are three groups of different opinions. Well, they're not really groups of different opinions. They're commonly known as schools of thought. Some of you, many of you may have studied the history of economic thought. You would have done so in first year economics. The basics of the key philosophical contributions to economics, Adam Smith, David Ricardo, Alfred Marshall, through to John Maynard Keynes and Milton Friedman. So what we're talking about there are not three groups, but really schools of thought. So it needs to be more precise there. If we go down to the third paragraph, the second sentence there, through the banking system network, well, raise the question, through the banking system network, central bank can influence the amount of money supply in society, it's more economy than society, through several monetary policy instruments. The ultimate goal of monetary policy remains to achieve better economic performance. Again, this goes to issues of precision of meaning. It's not really achieve better economic performance, because you can have too much economic growth, which can be inflationary, which can be contribute to balance of trade, balance of payments deficits, which is loss of international reserves. There might be resource issues between states and regions and provinces, and the economy's functioning. It's more around optimal performance. So the ultimate goal of monetary policy is price stabilization and low inflation, that's true. but it's more optimal performance, trying to find that best running performance for the economy that is not inflationary, that does not add to balance of trade deficits, that does not impact severely on fiscal fiscal outcomes. The fourth paragraph there, I've highlighted, goes around clarity of meaning. And I find this often in what I read, and that's simply because, I mean, English is not the first language of the writer, and I accept that, and it's difficult to write a paper that is not in your first language. This goes around clarity of meaning. A country with a good institution will be better able to achieve better economic conditions than a country with less good institutions. Now, I mean, in terms of English grammar and structure, that needs rewriting. But it also raises the question of, what is this saying? It's difficult to know what this is actually saying. A country with a good institution will be better able to achieve better economic conditions than a country with less good institutions. Now, are we talking religious institutions or economic institutions, social, familial? Now, of course, we're talking economic institutions, but we need more clarity of precision of what we're actually saying here. This, I feel, goes towards institutions here is about the central bank, government, parliament, or Congress, and how legislation is made, how policy is made and set and implemented. So good economic institutions. And finally, in that fourth paragraph there, it's around formal language expression, which I went to earlier, I spoke about earlier. In this final paragraph here, North at the bottom of the page, North defines institutions as various rules that can limit humanity devised to build structures for political, economic, and social interactions. Now, that needs more formal language. That needs more formal language and clarity of meaning. I'll just go back to that second last paragraph there. The highlighted occurred massively. That goes to the formal language I was talking earlier. Occurred massively should really read something like on a significant scale, or most notably. That helps provide smooth readership for the reader. It's like the table you're sitting at now. To run your hand across it, it's smooth. It's not rough on the hand. There are no splinters to the fingers. It's smooth and functions. This sentence doesn't really function nicely or smoothly. Occurred massively. Well, that's not really proper formal English language expression clarity. I'll just move on to a second example. If my screen, there we go. Second example. Are there any? I hope you're all okay. You can all hear me okay, and we're all proceeding. This is a second example I'd just like to demonstrate for you. My observations. This study, second example from that same article. That's it in the before stage. Now I've just provided some markups on this before and then after. So I now have some comments on my observations of how this could be improved or clarified, further clarified. Objective. Fiscal policy. This study aims to re-examine the effectiveness of fiscal and monetary policies from the St. Louis model. Here it describes monetary policy as money supply. Well, that's not quite precisely correct. Monetary policy is really around interest rate settings and bond buying and selling, or quantitative easing, QE. And these in turn affect money supply, or the M3. So monetary policy isn't about solving money supply. Monetary policy in the first instance is around interest rate settings and bond buying and selling, or quantitative easing. So there needs to be more precision of definition there. As another example of formal expression, it goes on, this needs to be done considering OIC countries face almost the same economic problems. Now, what needs to be done? It needs to be changed to, this needs to be undertaken given that. Such that helps provide that smoothness and flow from one sentence to another. It makes it easier for the reader to follow and read. That second paper paragraph there, the rest of this paper is organized as follows. It's not really the rest of this paper, it's more like the remainder of this paper. The rest is like, is to be in a stationary state, resting, tidor. The rest, it should really be the remainder of this paper. And then further, this paragraph, I feel, should actually be in the introduction, not so much in the objective section, because it's talking about it's introducing the paper in saying that the rest of this paper is organized as follows. So they're very good examples of what I've frequently come across in my readings of the journal articles. The journal articles are very valuable in providing knowledge and filling that gap fill that Professor Scaria spoke to earlier. And that's why we're doing research, is the gap fill knowledge. So that's really the principal reason why we do knowledge. So these are matters that really can be repaired and seen to and amended through close editorial guidance and assistance and direction. Because the English language, as any language, is very fine. Is a very fine thing, and it's in order for it to smoothly and smoothly and nicely, there are many changes that need to be made in terms of grammar and word use and flow and structure. I'm just sort of coming close to the conclusion of my presentation, but I'd just like to cover some practical matters. These you'll be familiar with, but they're worth repeating. When you're writing, what you're doing as academics and in your PhD studies, your further studies, is very technical, and it's very intellectually demanding. I don't need really to repeat that. You're fully aware of that. So in order to help you with the writing process, these are some matters that can help you along the way. You need a dedicated environment. Find a place that you're most comfortable with in writing at, be it at home or at the university library. Personally, I always found it best to go to the university library to read and write, or to the public library in the centre of town. In my city, Melbourne, Australia, there are some beautiful libraries, and I hope you'll come and visit sometime. The State Library of Victoria is a beautiful, large building built on a similar model in London, the Library of London. Find an environment that you're most comfortable with in reading and writing. Personally, I feel it's best not to work at home because there are distractions. The family cat, the kids, the family responsibilities around the household. There are many distractions there, and if you can, it's best to find an environment away from the home, in my view. The time of day. I find I function best in the mornings, up until 12 midday, the middle of the day, in terms of thinking and writing, and the mind is fresh and active, or later in the afternoon. Find a time of day that you're most comfortable with and keep to this framework that I've outlined here. Keep to it closely. Hard copy drafts. I feel that it's best to review your work in hard copy form, not just on the computer screen, because in the hard copy form, you can spread out your notes across the table and see how it all fits together. You can't really do that easily, really at all, on a computer screen. And it's very demanding on the eyes. I find it's very strainful on the eyes. So I feel it's best to read in hard copy as well, in terms of markups and amendments and restructuring. That's very important. You should not rely too much on the computer screen, because that's a small window that you're looking through. You're not getting the broad physical look at the paper as you lay it out on a table. The storage of the documents, that can be stored on a hard drive or on the cloud, in a cloud environment. You always make sure that your storage devices are working, functioning well. Sometimes also useful at the end of the day to email yourself the draft that you're working on, or the key documents that you've just been working on. So if your computer is stolen on the way home from the library, or if you drop your computer and it breaks and you can't access it or open it, then at least you have a very fresh and the latest copy in your email inbox. I always do that with topics or documents that are time critical. This presentation I'm giving you, for example, was time critical. I had to be ready today at 9 o'clock this morning. And thanks to Sari, who helped me set up, I was here at 9 o'clock and ready to go. So it's important that you email yourself the latest draft, because your computer you could drop it in the river by accident. It could get stolen. It could fall off your motorbike. So always email yourself a copy or send it to the cloud. That is very, very important. You cannot just rely on it sitting on your hard drive. Finally, the practical matters is to step away. Okay, a step away. Now, in Western culture, drinking alcohol is a very big thing in Western culture. Personally, I don't think it's a good thing. It's led to many social problems. In Western society, we call it detoxification. Okay, it means stop drinking for a few days, a few weeks, a few months, to stop drinking and let your body clear out of alcohol. It's not a nice topic, I'm sorry, but it's a very good example. We call it detox, or stepping back, detoxification. Similarly, with your writing as academics and researchers in your professional life, it's important to step away from what you've written. And by that, I mean step away for a few days. Leave your draft for a few days. Do not look at it for 2 or 3 days. To step away from it, and you'll reapproach it in a fresh mind. You'll be surprised at just how fresh and new you'll see it. You'll see it really with your own eyes, your same eyes, but it'll seem like different eyes. It's important that you step away for a few days, maybe a week. You may not have that much time. That's a long time, a week, 7 days, but it's all important to have a break from it and reapproach it later with a new perspective and new fresh eyes. And also, secondly, there to ask friends to maybe look at drafts. The step away is important. So there's some practical matters, some practical steps that you could use. And if you adopt this framework, I suggest you adopt it fairly stringently or rigorously. And to form good habits. I'm sure you all have good habits, given that where you are now and as academics or soon to enter professional life. You got to where you are now because of disciplined study, and that's why we call research disciplined inquiry, because it is discipline. It requires time and effort and discipline. So the resources on the IGIEF website, there's the link. This is a very good website, resources for authors and reviewers. That's a very good website to go to, and thankfully those guidelines are there. So I strongly recommend you go to this. And of course, this presentation will be available at the end of the class, the workshop. In terms of further resources, this is something I found on this website here. I don't know if it's still there, but it's a template that was developed on the website, and this is a very useful. This is a very good template. This is a very good roadmap on how to do your present your study. So I congratulate the authors, the administrators of the website for this template. The abstract there, I particularly like abstracts that are segmented out in terms of background, methods, research, results, discussion. Personally, I like abstracts that are set out in sort of small paragraph form, but they shouldn't be any more than 200 words or 250 words. This is a very useful template to use. We have almost 70 participants here this morning, and I know that the majority of you aren't here. Unfortunately for you, you're not here at UMA in Yogyakarta, but these are some resources I found at the library here at UMA, Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta. These are in the medical library, public health sciences library here at UMA. These are two useful books on research methods and the writing process. Creswell there on the left, in my right hand or on the left of screen. I used that during my master's degree. That's a very useful book. Social research methods there in my left hand or on the right of screen is a very heavy book on social research risks. But both of those books contain material on the writing process, which I direct you to. This phrase book here by Dr. John Morley, I was given that during my master's degree a few years ago. This is very useful for those connectives. This is very important for those creating that smoothness that I talked about, that cohesion. And as a reader of anything, we like things to be smooth. We like our lives to be smooth as possible. Similarly, with what we read, we want there to be smoothness in connections between paragraphs and within paragraphs that I talked about earlier in terms of that MEAL principle, MEAL principle. This is a very useful publication. I was given it during my master's degree. I can make it available if you wish, but I do ask you to reference it. It's not mine. It's from Dr. John Morley from 2014. It's very, very useful, highly useful in terms of providing that smoothness and cohesion. On social media, I try to avoid social media. I spent too much time on it in the past, but it's a very useful vehicle, means for information transfer and transmission. Here on Facebook, there is a site titled Write That PhD. There are similar sites to this on Facebook and maybe Instagram, I'm not sure. But this one is very useful. I've looked at it many times over the years in terms of guidance. It provides much more detail than I've provided here. There is that site and probably others on Facebook as well. So just to review, I'm just coming to the conclusion of my presentation now. Just to review, why do we write? We write to communicate knowledge, understanding, and input, in our case, research, and to gap fill. We need to situate our writing, place it in terms of where it is, in terms of what we already know on the topic. And I draw attention here again to monetary policy. That's really at the center of economic policy around the world now, as interest rates are rising and the possibility of the world economy going into some form of recession this year. I hope not. We all hope not, but we could be heading that way. In Australia, interest rates were just raised 2 days ago. Yesterday, interest rates were raised again in Australia for about the 8th time in 12 months. And Australia is experiencing a rise in interest rates, as is occurring around the world because of world events. While we write, we convey knowledge. We put on paper what we're writing, and to convey understanding, convey reality. As researchers, we're trying to get as close as we can to reality. ontology and meaning, and to provide understanding of where we are as a society and economy, and where we are at this moment in history. So summary, I'm just repeating what I've put in my introduction, so my apologies if this is a little repetitive. But today we've covered these topics: why we write, the value of writing, my observations, how to improve before and after, some practical matters, and in those practical matters I suggest you, I'm sure you will, because I'm sure you're all quite disciplined in what you're doing. This is disciplined inquiry after all, but those practical matters there I've outlined, I suggest you keep to those as strictly and as closely as you can, from day to day, week to week, month to month. The template there is very useful. Drafts, I suggest you do 3 to 5 drafts. This goes back to what Prof. Fiscaria was saying earlier, the need to read and write, read and write, read and write, read and write. You'll never get it right in the first draft or the second draft. That's just impossible. Knowledge is expanding greatly as we speak. You'll never get it right in the first draft. It needs redrafting, smoothing over, like the table you're sitting at now. The craftsman who made that table you're sitting at now worked on that for many hours to get it smooth and functioning and level and plain. The drafts need to be done 3 to 5 times would be my recommendation, possibly more. I'd say at the very least 3 to 5 drafts. I'd just like to briefly reiterate what Prof. Fiscaria mentioned earlier, just in a few minutes. You need to contextualize your work. That is in terms of situating it. You are filling a research gap. The research you're doing is really going to the question of, so what? So what does this mean? What is the importance of this? Evaluation, which is my background, we looks at what is. Evaluation is what is. Research is so what. You must ask yourself, so what? What place does my research have in the broader scheme of things in terms of knowledge? Explain what you are getting or the results you are getting. Search engines. I was very good when I was at the University of Melbourne. We had really very good research search engines for to use. I was very fortunate, and I came across many great journal articles. So hopefully you'll have good access to good search engine. Google Scholar is a very useful starting point. And of course, the reference sections in journal sections in journals are good leading pathways to additional research that's already been done. I'd suggest you put forward your drafts to your peers for comment, as well as to friends to read. But you do need to read and write and contextualize. So I'll finish up there. Go forth to ontology, to reality, to what is real. That sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, but it's relevant to us as researchers. Epistemology, ontology, aeotology, the morals or ethics of research. So I'll conclude there. I hope that's been of use to you. Thank you to Prof. Rizal and Professor Rizal and all for me to present today. Thank you for the opportunity to present. It's good to impart knowledge. And I'm very glad to be here as part of the Australian government's Australian volunteer program. And I again give thanks to Baksari here, who's been helping me with technical matters. I'm a bit lacking in those regards in terms of screen sharing. So I'll conclude there. I hope that's been fine for you, and just open up to any questions, and hopefully I can answer them. Any questions there? How do I? Sorry, how do I get to? Any questions at all?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. James, for the presentations. Is there any question from the participant?
It's been a long morning. I understand it's been a long. We started at 9 o'clock, and that's 2.5 hours, just over 2.5 hours. So I understand it's been a long morning. You might be setting a chape, so I understand if you have no further questions, but you're more than free to contact me, or I'll certainly provide a copy of this presentation and the attachments. I ask you to source the Morley document, Dr. John Morley document, give that reference. But I understand it's been a long morning. Probably wanting to have lunch soon, or a meal soon. So we might conclude there if there are no questions.
Okay, we still give you time. Maybe any question from the speaker, 1 or 2 questions.
No, I'll hand to you, Mbak Susula.
Yes.
But I thank you for your attention. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Maybe we can stop these discussions, and then because take a long time for today, and then maybe Mr. James can still help you. If you have any questions, you can ask directly to Mr. James by WhatsApp or by email, Mr. James.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can provide my email address through the Cecilia. Yeah, that's sure. Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your time.
Okay. So can you close the share screen?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. James, and for the nice presentations. Before we close these sessions, maybe we can have a picture together.
Susilo,
Yeah.
Maybe is there any suggestion from the participants if they need if we have another workshop on what they need, and then maybe the specific issues they want to elaborate? Maybe participants want to have some suggestion.
There was a lot covered this morning, so we might want to have further series of sessions to further expand on or open up what was covered this morning. So yes, if there are anyone suggestions, be nice to hear. Or welcome.
Maybe we can send them the Google form for the next further recommendation for the workshop, Prof. Rizal.
Agree.
Okay, so we need to make the Google form first, and then what they need, so we can facilitate them. Okay, can you open the camera, Prof, so we can take a picture together?
Sure.
Okay. So the first page, 1, 2, 3. One more, 1, 2, 3. Oh, I think I have one suggestion. The suggestion is please provide us with certificate of participations. Okay, maybe, we will give you the certificate after this. Maybe we can send you by email.
Okay, Mas.
I have one questions actually. For who? From Siswoyo? For the Mr. James, I think. What problem should be right for Scopus Journal, local or international issue? Mr. James, you are still mute.
I beg your pardon. Maaf saya. Yes, well, any research really, if there's a need for it, there's a gap that needs to be filled in our knowledge. That's the reason why we do research, really, is fill gaps in knowledge. I feel anything that is national or international would be useful. It goes, whether it's national or international, it goes to questions of generalizability. If you do a study that's based either nationally or internationally, just how much can this be generalized to other settings and environments? Can it be, is it applicable to other environments? A national study might be more manageable to do because it's within your own boundaries, your own nation, and you have more familiarity with your own nation. International is, I mean, the world is large, as we all know, and it's a matter of narrowing down or providing a scope or good scope, a relevant scope for the research. Maybe a series of studies of other nations, but it goes really to the nature of the research question. Regardless, if they're national or international, it's a matter of just how generalizable it can be and applicable to other settings. All research is useful to a very large degree because it provides knowledge. I don't know. I don't have a answer really to either national or international. But with the IGIF, it's most useful in that it's got an Islamic banking and Islamic economic focus, which is very useful and interesting, and that can provide really useful knowledge of Islamic banking and economic practice. International, well, we are a world economy. We're globalized. It's a very dynamic thing, the world economy. In my view, a study internationally would be very large and complex. I suggest in the first instance, maybe make it national, and then particularly, and from that you can get an understanding of other nations that where knowledge can be filled. But in the first instance, I would make it national. Yes, I'm sorry, that was a long answer to your question, but I would make it national in the first focus. Yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. James, for the questions, for the answers. And then once again, I would like to say thank you very much for participants. We have more than 60, around 70 participants for this workshop series. And then thank you for Dr. Askaria and Mr. James and Prof. Yaya as the Dean to facilitate us in this workshop. I think that's all for today. We can. I hope to see you again in the next workshop series from IGF. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Pak Susilo. Thank you, Pak Askaria, Pak James. Terima kasih Bapak semua peserta audiens. Semoga bermanfaat. Dan ditunggu papernya. Ditunggu papernya. Wait for your paper to IGF.
Amin.
Mbak Indin, Bu Nurul, makasih ya pertemuan. Alhamdulillah lancar.
Iya, Pak, sama-sama.
Mbak Sari juga, makasih ya. Tenang.